Okay, if Katie is still there, Katie, my friend, let me ask you about a couple of softer things that I noticed, and I wonder if they stood out for you as well. Trump sounded and looked different. He looked angrier. His voice was more raspy. He looked more disheveled. The hair was a little bit more wild. It seemed that this is something, a guy who's unflappable, nothing gets to him, and he's on his track. This might have gotten to him. He sounded so angry, especially at the beginning of that the series of statements he was making. And there also seemed to be a number of winks to the reporters or perhaps to voters where he's saying, you know, there was a conflict with the judge. You know what I'm talking about. And then he was talking about other trials and other cases. You know what it is. You know what it is. This constant sort of, I can't say it, but you know what I'm talking about. I wonder how all of that is meant to be interpreted, especially as we continue on with the story of Donald Trump in this election year.
Well, it's going to be up to Donald. We'll have to wait to see what we start hearing from Trump's sort of allies and Trump's associates, those who are close to him, to get a better sense of where his headspace is at. Yesterday, we spoke with Andrew Giuliani, who was a former special advisor to President Trump when he was in office. It was before the verdict came down, and we asked him, you know, where is Donald Trump's headspace at right now? And he said that Trump was able to compartmentalize things. He'd spent some of Memorial Day, the holiday on Monday here in the U.S. He'd spent some time with Trump, and he said Trump seemed particularly upbeat at that time, at least. They were hoping at best for a hung jury, and we've heard from Donald Trump's lawyer, Todd Blanche, that perhaps they had been anticipating that there could be a guilty verdict for all of those reasons that we just heard Trump sort of his anger and frustration about what's gone on that he just sort of aired there, talking about how he didn't think he was able to get a fair shake here in New York because he is politically unpopular in Manhattan, how he had issue with the judge. He thought the judge should have recused himself. That petition was denied. It did not happen. And so the judge continued to sit on this case and to guide proceedings here. And so that is what we're expecting to make up Donald Trump's appeal. The sentencing hearing will be held on July 11th. And then from there, the defense will have 30 days to file that appeal. And we can expect that Trump's legal team will do everything they can to try to have this verdict thrown out, and so that Donald Trump can be vindicated. But again, that's a process that could take weeks, probably months, and might even get put on hold for the U.S. election campaign.
Katie Simpson, thanks so much for sticking around, chatting with us. We'll chat again soon.
Thanks.
Okay, folks, let's now turn to Carolyn Koch. She is a trial and jury consultant, and she was listening alongside with us on what Donald Trump had to say. Ms. Koch, thank you so much for making time for us.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's our pleasure. And I mean, you're a consultant, you're watching this stuff, you're interpreting it. Tell me what you make of what we just heard from Donald Trump.
To me, as a lawyer and a consultant, and I've been doing this work for about 30 years, focusing on how jurors and lay people react to legal claims, it's painful for me to hear all that misinformation, not just from Donald Trump, but from all kinds of media people who put their spin on the legal system in a way that I think doesn't do the jury system justice. And it creates a lot of I don't know. I think constitutional rights are a tough sell to the average person. And you just hear a lot of casual statements, James Carville calling Trump a chicken for not taking the stand. I mean, as if the Fifth Amendment is just, you know, a piece of paper you can crumple up and throw in the trash. So that pains me because I'm a firm believer in the jury system, and they play by the rules. And so the rules that they were given made it pretty easy for them to convict. By the same token, they could have just as easily acquitted. And I think that's why people think this case shouldn't have been brought, because it could have very easily gone either way.
Trump has made it clear that he and his team will be appealing this verdict. Do you think there might be a potential that this would be thrown out? Well, how do you think they'll move forward?
I'm a little bit out of my lane, but let me just say this. So what Trump was convicted of, you know, he was charged with a misdemeanor, and then the underlying crime that it was connected to was actually a civil violation. And then when you add those things together, it equaled a felony. So I think that is what is, you know, when I read the jury charges and I read the transcript, that seems like a very obvious uh, legal issue that is vulnerable on appeal because misdemeanor plus a civil violation equals a felony times 34. Is that how our criminal justice system is supposed to work in a high profile case involving the incumbent's political opponent? There's a lot of vulnerability there, in my opinion, and I don't tout myself as a legal expert. I'm a trial and jury expert.
Okay, so talk to me about what has, in the course of these weeks and the jury's decision, what has been the big takeaway for you?
Well, the big takeaway for me is that the jury system works and it'll always work. And I'm not making any judgment about whether this jury was right or wrong, but when you read the legal instructions and you read the transcript of what occurred in this trial, the prosecution had this simple theory that fit the law that the jurors were given. There was a plan, the plan was executed, and then the proof that Donald Trump was part of the plan came in the beginning and in the end when he repaid Cohen. So the jury had the facts. And I think in any case, if you're going to try and beat the rap, you're going to have to come up with a simple alternative to the government's case. And, hindsight is 2020. But as we all saw, attacking the credibility of weak witnesses wasn't enough to do the trick.
Okay. Carolyn Koch, trial and jury consultant, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
It's our pleasure.